everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video where we've got some exciting news today. It was confirmed by Silver Screen Records and by the BBC and Doctor Who that the soundtrack to Series 12 has got a release date and a track list and track length and everything. So yes, we've only got to wait just a few weeks to get a full 2-disc soundtrack release for Series 12 on the 3rd of April. You'll be able to pick up the full Series 12 soundtrack, as I say, 2 discs, which is around 2.5 hours of music covering all 10 episodes of Series 12. So yes, it's looking like a very promising soundtrack of music from this series. I feel like Series 12 really took a step up from a musical point of view. I did enjoy Segun Akinola's music in Series 11, probably more than a lot of people did. It was definitely a departure from what we saw with Murray Gold back from the first 10 series of Doctor Who, where back then Murray's was very kind of orchestral, epic, cinematic music that often almost overpowered these scenes a little bit too much, but certainly was never something you would kind of not notice and was just in the background. In most of his episodes, there would be some very clear character themes, action themes, villain themes. They were all in there and very loud and noticeable to hear, compared to Series 11 where it was kind of stripped back a bit to an extent, where there was still a very clear theme for the 13th Doctor, but past that there were occasional sort of episodic themes and some kind of team or actiony themes, but they were much more fewer and far between. And the music was much more kind of in the background, I think it's fair to say. There was a lot of kind of constant pulsating beat type music to his score, which again does carry over to an extent to Series 12 as well, and kind of not quite the same epic orchestral style to it. There's a lot more kind of electronic and synthy type stuff in there, more electric guitar sort of type music. It just was a very, very different way of doing music for Doctor Who, where it meant that not all of it, but some of the music was maybe a little bit more bland or less noticeable, but there were still some very, very strong themes in parts of Series 11. But then from Series 12, I feel like things have taken a step up right from Spyfall Part 1. In particular, we look back to Spyfall, we look at the Master's theme, which is probably one of Segun's strongest themes he's created so far. In my opinion, probably my favourite theme for a incarnation of the Master. I feel like it works so effectively. It really embodies his character. The music for the reveal in Spyfall Part 1 of the Master is just so effective, so dramatic. You feel the real shock of the Doctor through the emotion of the music in that moment. And other moments in that episode, like the kind of James Bond homages that we hear, which are definitely going to be included on the soundtrack as well, which is fantastic news. I'll throw the track listing up on screen now so that you guys can have a look at it while I just kind of give a general discussion of it. And overall, I'm pretty pleased with what we're getting. It looks like the track lengths are all pretty good in general. It's nice to have everything organised as well. There was a weird kind of lack of organisation in the previous series soundtrack where I think we had episode 1, 2, 4, like 9 and 10 or something on the first, or 8 and 10 on the first disc, and then some other episodes. It was just all very muddled in the ordering, whereas at least this time round we've very much got the first 5 episodes on disc 1 and the next 5 on disc 2. Nice and easy and simple. And looking at it, it looks like pretty much every episode is pretty well served in terms of music. We've got sort of around 15 to 20 minutes on episode Spyfall Part 1, sort of 12 to 15 minutes on Part 2. I was surprised how much was included in Orphan 55, given the music is very much sort of more backgroundy, experimental stuff. It's worth having a look at the video the BBC have just released about the sort of music of Series 12, where Segun talks about what he tried to do with the music to Orphan 55, where he tried some very unique ideas. I think he talks about using a cello bow or violin bow on an electric guitar and getting sounds out of that, recording kind of ambient sounds of like extractor fans and turning them to synthesizers, and going out and recording music out in London, and then or sounds in London, then turning it into music. He was very much kind of trying to use all these different unusual experimental ideas to create the music. So I think on the soundtrack it could be quite an interesting listen, but not necessarily, it certainly wasn't something very noticeable in the episode itself, I think. Then certainly there were some strong themes in the Tesla episode, which I really enjoyed listening to, and I'm looking forward to seeing those kind of come out in these various tracks on here. A pretty solid amount of music that's coming from that episode as well. The Jadoon episode probably features some of my musical highlights of the series. In particular, the track The Lighthouse, which was the music for the Ruth Doctor reveal, is something that I've been listening to on repeat, the unreleased version of that. I cannot wait to hear the full released soundtrack of that, because it's such a fantastic piece of music that really, I think, just brought out the drama, the shock and the excitement of that moment that we saw there when the Ruth Doctor was revealed so unexpectedly. It's a really effective piece of music that I think works really well. And along with it in that episode, also the Captain Jack reveal moment has got that piece of music in there with the You Missed Me Right. Only 50 seconds because it was quite a short cue, but it's really nice to have that on the soundtrack as well. Then a few tracks from Praxeus, which again didn't have as much noticeable music. I think sort of in a similar vein to 155. It had a few nice themes in there, but it wasn't anything anything particularly spectacular, I think. So it'll be interesting to listen, because I think one of the problems with the Series 11 soundtrack was some of the sort of pieces of music on there were just very kind of bland and average, and you're kind of like, why did you bother putting that on the soundtrack? So I'm hoping we'll see a kind of a difference with that in the Series 12 soundtrack, where it feels like every single piece of music at least has something kind of going for it that makes it an interesting listen, I hope. And then of course we have a few pieces of music from Can You Hear Me, where I'm looking forward to hearing. So there were quite a few interesting themes in there. The theme of the sort of eternal, immortal characters in there were quite good. And I think some of the music towards the end of the episode as well was really effective. So I'm looking forward to hearing how that kind of comes out. And then also hopefully the first variations of the Cyberman theme in the episode 8 tracks, maybe in A Traveller Moving Through Time or Quicksilver, could feature some of the first Cyberman variations. I think we're going to hear quite a few of those in different tracks through the sort of episode 8, 9 and 10 soundtrack or tracks on the soundtrack, which I'm really looking forward to listening to, because I think that was one of the musical highlights of the series as well, was the reinvention of a Cyberman theme, that something very new, very sort of industrial, with the really heavy beats, the very unusual timing to the music as well, that really sort of throws you off a little bit almost listening to it. I think it's something really interesting, something I'm looking forward to kind of experiencing properly. And then of course we move on to the first part of the finale, where we've got the theme for Brendan and the music that was used in all the various island sort of well, not flashback scenes but the Irish scenes, which was really interesting, kind of more violin sort of string music, which I really enjoyed, a very different vibe to really anything else in Series 12. So I'm very pleased to see, I think both Brendan and The Fall are the two tracks from those scenes, which is something I'm very much looking forward to. And maybe some of that will come out in those last couple of tracks, The Ascension Shall Begin and Everything Is About to Change as well. And then of course the music to the finale, Tek Taeun, that was some fantastic music for those flashback scenes where we were learning about the Timeless Child. The thing for the Time Lords, when we sort of see Tek Taeun taking on the Time Lord Rose for the very first time. That music was absolutely fantastic. And the same with the music when we saw the sort of flashback of the Gallifrey Citadel Rising. That was a phenomenal theme. It really felt like that was kind of like the new This Is Gallifrey type music that we were hoping to get, that we didn't quite get previously when we saw the Destroyed Gallifrey. It was very much variations of 13's theme rather than something new. And so I'm hoping that I feel like that theme was really the defining theme of Gallifrey. And if it ever comes back while Sagan's still scoring the music, then I hope that that's what we'll be able to sort of bring back again, because it was such a cracking piece of music. And also Cyber Masters, that's probably my #1 most excited for piece of music, because in the episode itself, that was phenomenal. It was a mixture of this new Gallifrey theme and the Cybermen theme kind of combined into one piece of music, then moving into the Masters theme as well, sort of combining all the biggest, best themes of the series into one piece of music. That is something I'm so excited to listen to, because it really just felt perfect for the moment when we saw the Cyber Masters, or the Cyber Lords, whatever you want to call them, turn up on screen for the first time. I'm really just excited to listen to that. And then also the final piece of music as well, My Penance, when the Doctor nearly kills herself and all the Cyber Masters, and then when Ko Sharma comes and does it as well. That was a really nice piece of music. And Home Sweet Home to kind of round off the soundtrack as well is really something to get excited about. And I'm also really pleased to see that we've got the new Series 12 opening titles, which are just slightly tweaked. It's not a massively noticeable difference, but if you listen back to the two, you can hear a few little differences in there in the way it's mixed, which will be good to listen to. And the same, I'm really pleased that we've got the Ascension of the Cybermen end credits in this soundtrack, which is of course the first version of the Series 11 onwards Doctor Who theme to have the middle 8 in it, which is so exciting. It was brilliant to hear it again when we heard it in that episode, and I'm really pleased that Second's kind of thought about that, knowing that that's what the fans want to hear. They want to hear the proper, clean middle 8, and so we will be getting that as the final track to the Series 12 soundtrack. So yes, it's a very exciting soundtrack with lots of excellent tracks on there. As far as I can tell, based on what I kind of know and remember from editing the complete soundtrack unreleased music versions and the track titles we've got from the Series 12 soundtrack, it doesn't look like there's any noticeable omissions from the soundtrack. I guess we'll just, once I have a listen to it, and I might suddenly realise, oh yeah, that's missing, that would like that to be in there or not, I don't know. We might get that, but I'm hopeful looking at the soundtrack listing and that it should be a fairly comprehensive catalogue of all the best music from Series 12. And as I say, yes, we've only got a few weeks to wait. The 3rd of April is the release date for it, so do pre-order it if you haven't already. It's definitely going to be something worth listening to, I think. And I will be doing a review of the soundtrack once it comes out, and once I've had a couple of listens to it, I will be putting a nice little review together, just discussing some of the best and worst tracks of it, whether it's actually worth a buy overall, and just some general opinions on it. But yeah, overall, I'm very excited for this soundtrack. It's very much been a step up from Series 11, I think, and so something I'll definitely be having a good listen to. And do let me know down in the comments below what tracks are you most excited for based on the track listing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it down in the comments below. I hope you guys have enjoyed this quick little video. Do, as always, remember to hit that like button, that subscribe button, and I'll see you again very soon for another brand new video. Goodbye!